Happy Monday, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here, Lunch and Learn, talking about anything and everything EOC and talent search proposal related. I also have with me Teresa Thompson Pickney. Thanks for joining us this rainy Monday. She's deep into, how do you say that? It's 50?
15. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of money out there with a short turnaround, right? Can you let us know when the announcement came out and how much time they gave you all to write for how much money
I believe
approximately?
it came out the 12th of November. It's due December 3rd. There are a total, I believe, of seven priorities. So very much a very diverse priorities. And I mean, there's so many millions. I know that, on average, the highest amount is about 4 million per
Mhm.
year. So,
Mhm. Mhm. And so December 3rd. So it came out November 12th, due December 3rd, not even 30 days
yeah.
for millions of dollars. So,
Mhm.
Teresa, there was the MAOP had their conference last week or yeah, early last week, I think it was. And one of my clients attended that, and she said that somebody from COE said that the department is still planning. The plan is to have the EOC and talent search RFPs out by December 1st.
I'm like, okay. All right. Well,
And
I
so,
wouldn't be surprised.
well, because of what you're going through right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They issued that before, right? Was the government shutdown still on when they issued that RFP for 50? Or
Yes.
had it just ended?
It had just ended like Friday, I think, and Monday
And
it
it
was,
came
yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying, y'all, is it doesn't seem conceivable, right? But it could happen that on December 1st, they say, okay, and maybe they say, okay, they're due by before Christmas.
Hmm.
They could do that.
Yeah.
They could do that. They don't have to give us the 30 days, right? It's take it or leave it. I mean, they're supposed to, but all bets are off right now. They could do another whatever to say that
Mhm.
yeah, they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So I hope not, Teresa, but look what you're having to do for so much more money
Yeah.
than our projects are asking for an annual basis. So it's on y'all. I really feel that it's a that Thanksgiving for you. It's a talent search EOC Thanksgiving for me. I'm gonna wrap up all my templates and come back full force December 1st, thinking that, and I've been working with clients to collect their data back and forth, their budget back and forth. So I hope those of you out there have already done the data collection or about to wrap it up. You don't want to start on December 1st. You want to go ahead. And I don't want you to panic, but this is why we've been meeting for almost a year now to kind of get you into that mindset. All right. So again, just plug here for our services in the NEC shop. We've got our free webinars. You're attending one right now. We also have technical assistance with the APR going on, which is critical because it's that right now for EOC and talent search, it's the last year. You're going to 24-25 can get any prior experience points. That's why y'all are, probably pushed to the front of the top of the front of the line in order to get those in. We do have our proposal writing courses. If you've already gone through those, great. If not, this is a great time to enroll in those. Those are, you can't use project funds for the grant writing workshops or the courses. You can use project funds for the professional development that we have listed here. But our purpose here is to make you aware of, the proposal writing services right now that are not allowable cost, but it takes money to make money. They're, $500 each. And so that's a great return on investment. If you can't have somebody write it with you or for you, that's the best we can do and try to give you everything within 10 hours of instruction there. So it's some really good information that you could have there. And it takes you through, for example, one of the things I'm going to share with you right now is the objective section. Now, this PowerPoint that I'm about to show you will not be in the free Google Drive for the lunch and learn. Okay. But you're going to have the recording. So if you want to watch the recording or, listen to the discussion, but if you want the actual PowerPoint and materials that come with it, you would have to join the course and purchase the either EOC or the Talent Search course to get the materials itself. Okay. But we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to show, but I'm not going to share in the Google Drive. Sorry. but you know, at least we're sharing this in the video version. Okay. So Donna, how was the poll? What did we come up with? And I have Donna, of course, with us. So I'm drafting like a machine. I'm stuck in the needs section. I haven't started yet. I'm editing the previous version. Okay, that's good. Remember, you want to take it apart. The questions may be the same, but the way we need to answer very different this time around, very different. I'm being more critical of my responses. I'm editing those responses. I'm definitely taking out any trigger words, but I'm also being more thoughtful in my response than ever before. Okay. So Teresa, I don't know if you have anything to add that if you're working on any advice you can give folks on their older version of, their proposal and how they should, move forward with editing.
I think the biggest piece, and you pointed it out, is really just making sure that you are clear about what the DEI elements are, if you have any of that in your proposal, and just making sure that you do a clean refresh when you actually look at the grant from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And we have included in the Lunch and Learn, the free Lunch and Learn Google Drive, several documents there that you can use to double check each section of your proposal, including your GEPA statement, which we'll have to do a workshop on maybe next time we meet. And also, your every single section, you want to make sure you look at that. And there's several documents there to help you with that. Okay. One of them is a Gear Up document as well. Okay. All right. So let me shift over. Do we have any questions at all across the board before we get started? Anything pressing? Anyone have any questions about it? I see some chats. I don't see any questions. Nope. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And do we have more? Can you do that poll about EOC and Talent Search, Donna? I am going to go ahead and make the assumption that we have more Talent Search people on. So I'm going to bring that up first. Can you see my screen, Teresa, with the
Yes.
objective section? Okay, so this is what we've presented in our formal grant writing workshop. And I'm going to show it to you. It's being recorded, but the materials itself, you're not going to see in the Google Drive, okay? Because people did pay for that, so they have access to that. But not a teaser, but I'm sharing it with you at least in this manner so we can have discussion about it. All right. So the objective section for both EOC and Talent Search, let me know, Teresa, if I'm off, but I believe I remember correctly, they're both 8 points and I can toggle between the two. So they're both worth both 8 points. And everything I'm telling you right now is based on the 2021 program application. All right. All right. For Talent Search, it's on page 62. And you want to be familiar with in the regulations or in the RFP initially, that's all you get. You don't get the detailed formal wording. And the same thing when you're looking at EOC. When we're doing EOC here, this is what you get here, just this wording. So where are the actual wording of the objectives? Well, those come in on in the program profile form, and that's where they're actually listed. And that's one of the documents that's within the 2021 RFP for both. And we do have most Talent Search, and some people are doing both. But what you want to do is you want to go into that RFP for 2021, which is in the Google Drive, and look at Talent Search. You're looking at pages 73 and 74. And I believe on EOC, it's on page 28. Okay. And you want to look there. Well, that's the program profile form, but I believe somewhere here we might have done that to get the actual wording there. Yeah. So when you get to that, you want to see the exact wording, and that's what you want to make sure when the final RFP comes out for the 2026 competition, that you go to the program profile form in both RFPs. Okay. Don't rely on what you submitted in 2021, because they could have, I don't think they did, but they could have changed the language. Okay. And the language or the exact narrative or wording of each objective comes from the program profile form, not the regulations. So meaning that for both EOC and Talent Search, they cannot change the overall umbrella language or the title. We're stuck with these until they literally do the reauthorization, right? We're stuck with this overall header or a broad category of, you got to have a secondary school persistence objective. You got to have one about graduation, and one with rigorous, and one about going to college, and one about graduating from college. Whereas EOC, you have to have one about folks getting a diploma or a GED, how many apply using FAFSA, how many apply for financial aid, how many apply for college admissions, and how many go to college. So that is, non-negotiable. What is negotiable and what the department can do is they can change the wording every 5 years. Okay, so that's what the number one thing we check whenever we get the new RFP. We go to the program profile form and literally copy and paste the wording there to make sure that's the wording that's in our updated objective section. Even though it may look exactly the same, words matter, right? A period here, an extra, an S, a plural can change everything. Take it from me, you want to copy and paste what's in the new RFP when it comes out and replace it in your, if you're updating your objective section. Okay. I don't think there'll be any major changes, Teresa, but I've been surprised, and I don't know. I don't know if you've been involved with FIFSI before to see if there was any changes going on. That kind of thing. We do have a couple of chats here. For adding a school, would you contact the school first or get as much data as you can on your own first before talking to the school? I'm going to let you answer that, Teresa. That chat for about adding a school.
Okay, I will do that.
But I mean, you can go and answer it now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if you're adding a school, you would want to first do the research, and potentially, if there's public information out there, you might be able to see whether or not the school is going to be eligible. They have enough participants that will be eligible for your program. So that's one thing to think about. But also, you definitely would want to reach out to the school or the central office, depending upon the politics of your area, to ask them if they would be a partner as well. So I tended to do both, but definitely I needed to do my research early on just to see what the eligibility of the students looks like at that school, before I actually reached out to the school.
Definitely, right? You don't want to invite somebody and then disinvite them and say, "Oh, never
Yes.
mind," after you got them all pumped up to that. And sometimes, I mean, sometimes you may have to let them know we are doing research, and so far, it, like, maybe you're looking at numbers of students and numbers low income first generation, free and reduced lunch, and then you're looking at some things. But always tell a new school, even when you have preliminary data that looks like things are showing a need, you got to let them know, look, we have to do this research. You could even share with them all the tables that they have to show need going across the board ahead of time. And if they help you, maybe they can make it work, but you got to let them know this is not a for sure thing. And the more you let them know about that, hopefully they'll be more likely to help you with the data that you need, and then also be understanding when in the numbers you have to tell them y'all are too good. I can't include y'all. So that's the good news. And remember, if that target school is in the target area, you may still be able to serve them on a limited basis or on a different type of schedule than your official target schools, if you can still find students that are low income first generation and have a need for services at that school, even though they couldn't make the official target school cut. If they're in the area and you need the numbers, you can still work with them. So that could be the case, right? You could say, Teresa, oh, I'm sorry, you know what, we're not going to be able to include you, but based on the data here, we can still serve y'all. You just wouldn't be official, right, Teresa?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cindy has questions about what the objectives might be. Again, I don't think there cannot be new objectives, but the wording may be different, possibly. So that's why I say, as soon as you get that, check out that program profile form that's located in the RFP and double check and copy and paste. I don't anticipate any major changes, but definitely not in the actual overall title, but maybe slight wording, and maybe not even that. And then when will it be due? I don't know when the RFP will come out. I'm just going by published information about when they planned on doing it was December 1st, about making sure the RFP was out. That was the plan, but a lot of things happened that weren't planned, but that's the best I can give you. Okay. All right. So again, we've established that we want to look at the wording. And then in both Talent Search and EOC, you want to think about the services, the required and the permissible services. Now, EOC doesn't have any required services, they have permissible services. But for Talent Search, you want to think about what services fall under of everything you do. You know, think of all the things that you do. And yes, some are required in Talent Search, some are permissible. EOC, we have a list of permissible. Start thinking about how you can organize that or list or come up with that some services are more directly related, possibly, to helping you, for example, with persistence than others. The same thing with EOC. Which services are you providing that are more directly related to that first objective of helping people get a diploma or get a GED? Okay, one could say everything we do. I get it. I get it. But to present it to a reader, it's not going to be good enough to say, oh, well, we do all these services to make sure it happens. Because remember, we're supposed to here talk about when we set a percentage for an objective that it's ambitious yet attainable. Well, it's ambitious when we drag up stuff that we dealt with, in the needs section. This is why it's ambitious. But your attainable cannot be, oh, because of all the services we're going to provide. No, it should be because of the following specific services that the EOC project will provide during the year. And then you should list just some of those services that relate directly to that objective. Okay. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying everything will work out. Now, you and I could talk about yeah, definitely financial literacy helps in all of them. And it does, but we want to specialize and be a little bit more, have a little bit more intent about where or structure about forcing the issue and making the reader think like me, to agree with me that, or not maybe agree completely, but to realize that I'm not saying everything we do. I'm saying the following 2 or 3 things are very specific to meet that objective. All right. And so the same thing would be for EOC than Talent Search. Look at the services. We offer different services. What would work for that? So on secondary school diploma, that's a separate objective on and Talent Search, how many students get a diploma. Well, what are some of the services that we do that we can say are specific to helping students get a high school diploma, even if we start working with students in the 6th grade? Just because it's an objective that is measured when someone is a senior doesn't mean you start doing it when they're a senior. You can say that these things are done every year. The intent is that these things, and some of them happen just, of course, when I talk to a middle school student about understanding high school graduation plans, no, that's probably an 8th grade, 9th grade thing. Some of these things could start at different grade levels, but doing the initial and annual needs assessment and a service plan can be something you can say is an activity that your project does to help students, graduate eventually from high school. So just because it's a 12th grade objective doesn't mean that that service starts at the 12th grade. Okay, let me flip over to EOC again. So EOC, we talk about some things to consider, here's their objective, right, on the program profile form. And these are services that you might want to say are specific to helping them get a GED or go back to school. It's not everything we do, okay? And then when you get to the next objective about financial aid, what are some things you do related to that? Okay, so see how you're taking all your services and kind of fine tuning them or separating them so that they focus as a primary activity to meet each separate objective. Okay, same thing here with graduation from rigorous. What are some things that we can offer every single grade level? If you are working with 6th graders through 12th graders, these sorts of things could be very specific to that group of students, focused on certain times of the year. This is our activity timeline where we provide some things to everything every year and then something specific to some grade levels. This is where I like to throw in the high quality tutoring. That we have to either offer direct high quality tutoring or connections to high quality tutoring. Okay, it's one or the other. So whenever I think of quality in both, in Talent Search, I think low quantity, meaning low numbers of students to get this high quality stuff. So I purposely decided to focus on saying that tutoring would happen in those rigorous secondary school program of study courses because I have the fewest number of students involved in that. I'm not saying that we're not going to offer tutoring to everybody else. It's just the focus. So I purposely tie in that required service of either a connection or direct tutoring, which is something I have very little money to do, and it's going to impact a very, very few students. I'm going to tie it into that objective that is my would impact the lowest amount of my students to keep it consistent, right? You never want to act or say that, oh, yeah, we'll provide tutoring to everybody. No. And you don't want to say anyone who wants tutoring is referred to the school's tutoring program. Well, you want to go ahead and let me know why you think that's high quality tutoring. Okay. Don't assume because you refer them and you're going by the school's program that the reader will pick up on why it's high quality. Teresa, I think this time around, the high quality will really be questioned and like never before,
I
you
agree.
know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So give me something. Give
Hmm.
me a reason why. If
Hmm.
it's online, what's the vendor and they've had years of this experience or blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
If it's a referral to the school, are they partnering with 20, some other program? Are their tutors trained? Are they the actual instructors? That's why it's high quality. Right, Teresa, I don't know if you have any tips on how to, tie that into being, high quality.
Yeah, I think that just, talking about, just based on research, there is some evidence that if a student attends 3 times a week consistently for an hour, that they tend to show growth and things of that sort. So, just, one sentence on, the evidence behind tutoring and what it does for students. And then as well, the other piece, like Lisa said, is really articulating what the framework is like. Is it webinar? I mean, I'm sorry, is it online or is it face to face? And why it's that. And so, with the with the online version or the yeah, with the virtual version of tutoring, it may be that it's more accessible to more students versus face to face. So just you don't have to talk about both, but you may provide both, but just making sure that you're clean and clear about the value of tutoring and what it means.
Thank you, Teresa. When we get to the EOC objectives again, break it down into what those things you think are specific to helping students, participants with their post-secondary admissions process, and then ultimately enrollment. Here's the actual wording from the old, the 2021. I may have to update it. That's the first thing I'm going to check. But these are the services I say we're going to implement so that it's the objective will be attainable. Okay. And we throw in career information, also, assistance in post-secondary course selection, college adjustment activities, along with, the previous objective goes into detail about helping them actually apply for admissions and things like that, and the individualized technical assistance. So you want to sure you break it down. Okay. I know in EOC and Talent Search, we do a lot of stuff together, so we don't realize those different steps. But sometimes you have to step outside literally and start deconstructing what you do, when you do, and what it falls under. It gets to be so natural, we merge it all together. And I think that sometimes is a struggle. It's easier for people on the outside to deconstruct it. And readers will be looking for that difference. Again, I don't want you to say, because of all the services we do over, or worse, because we've always met this objective in the past, and I have read that. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. You're beginning to bug me when you start using that as your excuse. And it's like, no, that's not. So anyway, just for both sets for EOC and Talent Search, the objective, and then realizing that there are specific services for that. And even for the one about kids, students that graduate from college within 6 years of going to college, those seniors, like this year's seniors that start college in the fall, what are you going to provide them with? You can't provide them with anything. So what you have to tell the readers are, we're setting this objective. It's going to be ambitious because look how low it is, or these other barriers we got going on. But you know what? We're going to make it happen because while they're with us, I'm not saying that all the 12th graders, 6th through 12th graders are going to get all these things, but we're going to start career exploration in the 6th grade. And we're going to say that's one of the things we use long term so that the student will eventually graduate from college. Of course, college adjustment and orientation activities, those would be reserved for the 12th graders. Connections to high quality tutoring and dual enrollment and advanced placement courses, Those will be, at the higher grade levels possibly. But referral to summer prep programs, that can happen all around. It doesn't have to be a trio program that you're referring to. Gosh, Talent Search, we were always, especially in the city of Fort Worth, we were constantly trying to dump our kids on somebody else during the summer, right?
Mhm.
So they can get a bridge program from them, because we didn't have the money to do it. We could do that every single grade level, find out what's going on and get them in that program. We get them back for the academic year. Financial literacy, we say at every grade level, is a way to make sure that the post-secondary degree attainment is going to be possible. So you see, it's not, I once went to a training where the person said, okay, so let's talk about what are tracking activities for this objective? And I said, no, this is not, there's another question in the plan of operation asking you how you track your students through college. No, this is asking, what are you going to do every year you have them with you to prepare them for that objective? Because you can't serve them after they leave you, okay, unless they drop out and come back. So that's the difference between the two, okay? All right, so now that we've kind of went through the specifics as much as we could for each program, Talent Search and EOC, here are some things to consider overall for both. Include only the stated standardized objectives. I mean, that makes sense, right? But you won't believe when we have new people coming in, they think they're going to make it better by adding on additional objectives, which will throw off your reader. And some of those objectives are really good annual internal goals that should probably go into the evaluation plan. So I'm not saying, I see some of these things, I say, that's a pretty good, internal goal, but don't mix it up with an objective. Stick to the plan here. Stick to just the stated objectives. You could always bring up anything else you want to bring up to measure is probably a great internal goal that you can talk about in the evaluation plan. All right. Percentages for the objectives for both EOC and Talent Search must be both ambitious, based only on the needs section data, and attainable, which I would recommend should be based on services in the plan of operation section. So to me, it's a preview. It's like a review of the needs section and a preview of the plan of operations. Kind of the objective section to me is the bridge. And it's the last section I actually develop. I mean, I could have, I take that back. It's the last section that I finalize. I could have it drafted, with stuff from the needs section for the ambitious, stuff from the plan of operation to why it's, attainable. I could have the wording up there. I could even have the baseline that I collected as part of, why it's ambitious. Here's the baseline, and here are some other reasons why. But the thing that I go back and forth on, Teresa, is the actual objective that I'm setting. I may put a certain percentage down and say that it's a 15 or 10 percentage point increase, and then get some sleep and look at it again and go, oh, no. I need to go back. And so I go back and forth. And so I realize that I did that a lot. So I purposely do it last, so I don't torture my client with, what, those objectives I set like 2 months ago, the percentages, I want to change them. And they might have already done forms or gotten used to some stuff. So I purposely say, we're going to do that last. We're going to do that almost dead last, because I want to think about it. But the data collection is not done dead last. And the whole section could be done except for that one thing where I have it blank here and then how much of an increase it is. And that's what I've learned to deal with it all these years. I don't know, Teresa, if you have a different take on that.
No, it's exactly that is I may level set those objectives at any point, but that is the last thing that once I've done that, the proposal is done. So that is the last thing I go back and look at before I submit. And numbers, they do change. That last time I look at it, I use a little bit of gut. I use a little bit of everything that I know intuition wise. At that point, it's really intuition. And then I've even emailed you and said, "Hey, Lisa, what do you think?" I mean, the last day, because
And then
it's
what do we,
really
and
it's a gut thing at that
we,
point. You
and we
know.
already know between us, we already know we start with, hey, this is the baseline. What do
Hmm.
you think if I go this to this?
Hmm.
Other people you'll see on the listserv or on talking to each other on Facebook, hey, what are you using for your college enrollment objective? I'm doing this. What do you think? And I'm like, you can't talk that way. You have
Hmm.
to say, well, what is the baseline right now?
Hmm.
No one. should be giving you advice on what you should set your objective at, or you shouldn't be looking at someone else's paper to see what are you going to put? What are you going to put? Because it all depends on your baseline. So please, when someone asks you your opinion, the first thing I do, well, what is the baseline, Teresa? And Teresa already knows. She'll tell me, hey, it's 40 right now. What do you think about 50 or 55? You think that's too high? Now we're having a conversation. But if
Mhm.
she were to say, I put mine at 50%, what did you put yours at?
Yeah,
You know, yeah, you can't go by that, right? You
and
can't go.
when I say that gut thing, I'm literally upping it or downing it 1 percentage point. Like literally, I really vacillate over that. But I do most of it right at the very end.
And you don't want to do, oh, by 12.5 points up. You want to make it just 12 or 13 points. Don't be playing that little, oh, well, the baseline is actually, 23.3. Oh no, you need to even your baselines in your need section, round them up or round them down. Please don't put the reader through that
Mhm.
extra percentage point to have to think about that. Okay. So make sure you round up or down, and the same thing with your objectives. And Teresa, this is just me, but I hate having like a 23% objective. To me, it's either 20 or 25. I do that. I like the 20 or the 25 or the 30 or 35. But sometimes, it doesn't work out that way. That's just my own
Mhm.
little ritual that I go through. But yes, Teresa, I light many candles, and hope, that this is okay. And then I tell people, look, I'm waiting for it. Like I was desperate about the SSS feedback, to see how the readers treated our rationale and how we used percentage point,
Mhm.
not percentage increase. It's a difference. And I
Mhm.
prayed and I was like, I hope this works. And it did it across the board. But just because it worked this last time doesn't mean it'll continue to work. But at least that's some positive reinforcement that we gambled correctly. I just
Mhm.
wish we could do this well in Las Vegas, Teresa, with our otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We'd
We
be
wouldn't be
playing
here. We'd be really good.
forever, right? We'd be doing the slots, right? So if only, we think, gosh, if I only could make 10% of what were able to pull in federal funds, I'd be happy, right? Um, Things to consider. Don't mention past performance on the objectives as to why the percentage you're setting is attainable. Okay, that's the kiss of death. Don't tell me we've always met our objectives. But of course, no, 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 no. That really gets me on my really makes me upset and would not be a good answer. You want to write with specific activities, and why you think they connect to being ambitious, not just, well, we always met them. You want, and this is the big deal here, and the timing of it is awful. Right now, you're working on your APR for 24-25, right? So what you've met, what you were able to do, performance wise on the objective. Like, let's say for talent search for your college enrollment, guess what? We got 60% of our kids in college. Yay. Okay. But when I pull the data for the target schools, it looks like only 30% are going to college. Well, I have to set my objective off the 30%, not thinking I have to like have amnesia and forget that we're doing 60% with the students we serve. And the other thing is, even if you can forget that, remember your certifying official, your boss who just looked at your APR and said, oh, that's great. Y'all did 60%. Awesome. 60% of your kids go to college. And then 2 days later, you show up with your objectives, right? And you say, okay, well, I want to set it, I think I'm going to do 40% because right now it's, you may even say because it's 30% now. They don't hear that. They're like, wait a minute, you just did 60%. Why are you going down?
Mhm.
Teresa, have you had to deal with that conversation with clients and even your own?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those where when we make these decisions, we're really just trying to increase the odds of you all getting funded. And so so that back and forth is a necessary evil, but a lot of
That's
times we're able to get to a place where we're able to say that that will be the target. But I also wanted to add that I think my trauma came from the first grant I ever wrote by myself was talent. Well, the first time I ever wrote a grant was a trio talent search grant, and I remember, the reviewers. We got funded, but I did lose a point because I was. They said that I was too ambitious, and of course, my brain could not wrap itself around being too ambitious as far as the objective. But it was that last objective in talent search where we are saying that students will once they're in college, they'll move to the next year, or I can't remember what it is at this very moment. But I'm in FIPSy mindset. But I mean, my percentage was so high, even though we knew we could do it. They were like, "You're being too ambitious." So, and that's why I struggle so with that whole ambitious piece, and that percentage, even today.
And so it happened to me back at the Boys and Girls Club. And
Yeah.
I struggled the first time. I was like, well, you're so into it. You're like, isn't it obvious? But it's not. So I had to backtrack and I said, well, because, and I black and white in the language, I had to show her because the objectives are determined only from the baseline data in the need section, not from the APRs.
Yeah.
Your program officer is the only one who will probably ever see your actual performance. The readers will not have any clue whatsoever what your objectives were set before, unless you tell them in the grant, which you shouldn't, or what you've done. They're not getting paid enough really to look that hard to find out how you've been doing. Okay. So they have no idea what your percentages were like before. They won't think, oh, you're going backwards. So more likely internally, you might have to explain that to your supervisor, or we always have to explain it to the clients and say, remember, it's not off of performance, because you have students that have been selected, and these are students that are receiving services. We're collecting on data of folks that have not received services. Okay. And EOC struggles with that as well. You're not looking bad by going backwards. The readers are not going to have access to past performance. Okay. Any data listed in the objective section should have first been mentioned in the needs section. Don't hold on to any, alarming data, or, oh, I'm going to wait to bring this up in the objective section, save it. Don't save. Bring all the gloom and doom in the needs section and then repeat it. The big gloom and dooms, repeat that. Remember, your objective section should be a review of the biggest, most important pieces of need from the needs section. Okay, so don't hold on to anything. It should have been mentioned first, whether it's a big deal or a little deal in the needs section. Don't bring up anything new from the needs section in the objective section.
And Lisa,
So again,
can
go
I
ahead.
correct myself? The goal that I was talking about is the post-secondary degree attainment, not persistence. The post-secondary
Okay.
degree attainment, which is the most difficult one for me that I still struggle with. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do too. Because if you think about it, the baseline should be on how the target school did. Each target school's graduating class. But who's tracking that except us? We're the only ones that track, and only for the kids that we worked with that went to college. So then we have to compare it to probably the census data of all the adults in the target area that have a 4-year degree. So it's apples to oranges to begin with, right? So that's a tough one. That's a tough one to get the baseline for, and to try to make it realistic, right? To make it apples to apples. You want to link all your required, this is for Talent Search, and some of the permissible services to the 5 specific objectives, but for each one, not everything under everything. In EOC, you've got the 4 objectives. So you got to split it up and have some services going under some objectives. Don't say everything works for everyone. And here's easier said than done, right, Teresa? Don't set objective percentages too high or too low. If I had to pick, and I'll ask you, Teresa, but I have always seen more people go too high. That's what I see mostly than too low. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think too high. Yeah, because the too high is really, it's easier to say too high than too low a lot of times. But yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've seen both, but most of the time
Mhm.
people are going like, well, the baseline is 30. So
Mhm.
I'm going to go to 60. And I'm
Mhm.
like, ooh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
That could be too high, but 60 is failing, says my boss, 60 out of 100. No. So you can't think of it that way, because sometimes our post-secondary, in our census data for certain areas, they may say that only 8% of the target area has a bachelor's degree. So that becomes your baseline. So I can't go from 8% to 30%. That would be way too high. But I've had conversations where they said, well, my supervisor says 30% is awful. It's like, because they're thinking 30 out of 100%, right? I don't see that as often as I did in the past, but that was an issue. Unfortunately, this is the section most likely to lose points. for both EOC and Talent Search, any proposal, if they had me and Teresa locked in a room and we had to get through all these proposals, and we like came down and said, okay, we read, and they said, no, we need, we only have funding for 6 and you got 8 there. We need 2. You go back. And you're like, where do I go back to see where I can? Oh, I know, Teresa. Let's go to the objective section. It's the easiest place to take points off of, and the hardest for you to justify or to fight us later on an appeal, right? That's what, right,
That's,
Teresa? I don't know if you want to add
that's
to
true.
that, but that's the
I
quickest
agree.
way.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah.
Go right there and say, what are you going to talk about? Math doesn't lie. Math don't
Mhm.
lie. You could say it's too high. I think it's too high.
Easiest to
Oh,
lose, hardest to prove.
yep. So it's sad but true. So that you see why it's the last section we finalize. We have to get the complete. We have to get the complete data. And people will say, well, what are our objectives? What are our objectives? And I actually had a couple of clients already. Once they pulled the data, they went ahead and said, well, these are the objectives we're thinking about. I said, okay, hold on to that. But I promise you, we got to let it marinate. We got to get the
Mhm.
rest of the proposal done. We got to come back and see. And I'm already looking. I'm like, that's too high, but I'm not going to bother him or her about it right now. I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to tell them later on why I don't agree, that I think that's too high or too low. So depending on the rigor of the objective too, right? Because like Teresa said, her nightmare objective, like mine, is the percentage of students that will graduate with a college degree within 6 years, right? With a degree. That to me is very rigorous. Also, depending on our definition, the other thing that the other objective that bugs me in Talent Search is the percentage of students that will graduate having completed a rigorous program of study. Those are supposed to be just in the wording themselves, and to an outside reader going, wow, that graduating with that extra honors program, that's got to be harder than regular diploma. So you would think they're not expecting that much of a jump from the baseline. Just like graduating from college with a degree is a lot harder than either getting them into college or for a student going from one grade level to the next, right? Mm-hmm. So it depends on the rigor. Okay. And you want to get that across. They should be just with the wording and just they're looking at, wow, those are harder. So you want to make sure also the baseline, like Teresa and I, when we talk about objectives, it's an understood fact. You got to tell me where we're at right now. And I'll also look at the clients. That's why we get the needs section done first as much as we can before we set the objectives, so that we can go ahead and look at the baseline and talk about it. And what I do is, this is my thing, is I avoid setting percentage increases higher than 20 percentage points, which is defined as PP, percentage points. My optimal range, my feel comfortable range, Teresa, is between 10 percentage points higher from the baseline up to 15 if I can. Okay. 20 is a stretch for me. Okay. So that means if it's 30, I don't want to go up to 50. I may go up to 45. Okay. And again, a percentage point, PP, represents the absolute arithmetic difference between the two percentages. I want to get that across to the reader. I don't want them to assume. So I make sure to worm that way in, that this is, I don't want them to think. I will do their thinking for them. Mm-hmm. The baseline is this. I want to take it up to this. It's a 10 or 15 percentage point increase, which is the absolute arithmetic difference between the two percentages. Okay. I don't let them use their own math, because they could. And last time around, I think I was using the other percentage increase, which one could argue is also correct, but it doesn't translate to a lot of folks, readers, and they get confused. So I'm not going to, I'm going to just go to the simple absolute arithmetic difference. I used to do it differently, and I realized you can be so right, you're wrong. And that's one of those things. So I'm using this, and I'm pretty much being a bully about it in a way that I'm like, almost like you right? This, you can't think of it any other way. This differs from percentage increase or decrease, which refers to a relative change rather than an absolute difference in percentage points. I'll even put that at the bottom of the table as an extra definition. So I'm really, because it's so important that you understand what type of math I'm utilizing. and that you don't get it confused and penalize me if you're not aware of the differences. Teresa, I don't know if you want to speak to that or how historically you've done it with proposals.
I agree. I use the same. Well, of course, I attended all your workshops when I was when I worked for the university, but I definitely do it the same way. And I think the other thing to remember is to be consistent with your numbering for every single objective. Don't change the way in which you measure the percentage or the points or however you articulate it. Just make sure you're consistent in every single one, so you train them to your math.
So for those of you like Teresa that have been with me for a long time, I used to do it differently, and I've switched over to this, and it's connecting a lot more with different types of readers. And I've yet to have a reader get confused like they were previously. And I wasn't there. See, it's so frustrating because you want to pop up or you want to find that reader and say, hey, you understood me on the first couple objectives, but when it got down to a very small number, Teresa, like that low baseline, and I said from 5% to 8%, that's a like 30% increase or something. They didn't get it. They said, oh, that's only 2%. No, you followed me and then I lost you because the baseline got lower. This doesn't make any sense. But guess what? I'm to blame because I should have known, or I should have taken into account that readers sometimes don't get it, or they get you 75% of the time and they lose you on that last objective. So now I'm just gonna, you can't beat them, join them. And so I'm gonna simplify it, and I'm going to be ridiculously Captain Obvious to the point that it makes my clients roll their eyes. But I'm writing for someone who's literally going to spend maybe 10 minutes on this section at most. I got to get it across to them, even though it drives you crazy how many times I say, because of this, and this, and this. You're like, can we remove that? You have that under every table. Can we just say it once? I said, no, you can't just say it once, because guess what? They're going to miss it. They're going to miss it. Take it from me. All right. So you want to make sure you distinguish between, you understand the difference between percentage point increase and percentage point increase, and how here's how they differ. The percentage point increase measures the absolute difference between the two percentages. So if a rate goes up from 10% to 15%, it's a 5 percentage point increase, not a 50% increase. Okay. But percentage increase measures the relative change in percentage. So if it goes from 10 to 15%, the percent increase is 50% because of the math there. I don't want to use this no more, this last one. I want to stick to this, the absolute difference. And like Teresa said, make sure you're consistent. Don't be switching. Don't be switching. I would strongly recommend use the absolute difference. I tried to use relative change, and it was only 50% successful. And I can't deal with that. This is a much higher rate of understanding. And so that's what I would recommend. Okay. So let's go here. In your objectives, roast Talent Search and EOC, I know I'm sharing Talent Search, but this is the same for both. You want to emphasize the difference in the need between the target area data, okay, compared to national, state, or data. That's what your whole thing in the need section is, to show, look at the difference, look at the gap. In the objective section, you're trying to emphasize the increase or the improvement. So you can use that wording, a percentage point increase, a percentage point improvement between the baseline and the objective that you're set. And again, we've already said this is last section completed. Everything could be done except the percentages set after the baseline data is finalized. And I didn't put in here after you step away. You ever heard, walk away from it. Don't go with your initial, set them objectives and let them marinate. Come back after a couple of days. Do you still feel okay with it? Okay. You may feel differently weeks later. So I hate to do them first. You would think, right? You have to fight the urge to go ahead and set them. Even if you have all your need section data, go ahead and set some preliminary ones, but don't say they're the final ones. Don't start doing all the forms with them on, because you know what could happen, right? You go ahead and do your program profile form, which is what you have to set your percentages on, separate from, along with the narrative and the proposal. you do that program profile form where you plug in the percentages, or somebody else does it for you, reading your objective section, you got to make sure those are the same. I can't tell you, there have been a handful of times where it's gone in different because people have changed and they didn't update the narrative or update the form. Guess what? What goes on that program profile form is what the department sets on the APR website as the percentages they have down for you. So make sure you're literally on the same page. So for both talents, go ahead, Teresa.
Lisa, there's a question, and I think you answered this, but I'm not sure which one came first. The question is, can you give an example of absolute change versus relative change for objective percentages? That was
Yeah,
in the
I can
previous
I
slide,
can
but go
go
ahead.
back up so you can get this on the video here. So let's go back here. Okay. So absolute difference between two percentages. For example, if your college attainment or post-secondary degree attainment for the target area is 10%, and you say, I want to set our objective to 15%, then I would tell the reader, this is a 5 percentage point increase. I wouldn't say it's a 50% increase. It's a 5 percentage point increase. I'm going up 5 percentage points. Okay. See that 10 to 15, 5. But if I say it this other different way, relative change, if I'm saying that I'm going from, I could actually also turn it around and say a 10% to 15% increase from 10% to 15, the actual percentage increase would be 50%. And that would be too high. So a lot of times when you have a very low baseline, it also helps to more sense when you use the percentage point increase. Because if you stuck to my old way of saying, nope, we're going to do it by relative change of percentage. We're going to, because the difference is percentage point increase. You want to use that terminology versus percent increase. If I go from 10% to 15%, and if I say I'm using percent increase, I'm forced to say that we are going to improve the rate by 50%. And that would be way too high. If you are going to stick to this relative change, then maybe going from 10% to, I don't even know, Teresa, 12%, if that is, that may be a 25, let's say it's a 25% increase. Okay. And you're happy about it. You tell the reader, well, that's a 25% increase. The reader will go, oh no, 15 to a 10 to 12, that's only 2%. Even though you spelled it out, that's how they got me. And I said, that's it. I don't know how else to spell it out. I told you it was a 25% increase to go from 10% to 12%, but you still came back and used their math, which was the absolute. And he goes, oh, it's not a big increase because it's only 2%. They did it to me 3 times. And I said, I give up. I give up. So anyway, hopefully when you go back on the recording here, you could see that difference, but you want to stick to the percentage point increase on the absolute difference. Okay. Let's see. Oops. Sorry about that. Let me see here. Okay. So I lost that. Let me see. Oh, let me go back in here. I'll search objectives. All right. So wrapping this up, let me talk about the recommended format. And thanks for that question. Okay. Again, if you attend our workshop, or you can actually get access to that slide. And also we have a example, what we did. I think I have an SSS and an upward bound example where we use this recommended format. Now it's for SSS and upward bound, but you all can figure it out how to make it work for Talent Search and EOC. So what we would recommend is you repeat the baseline and other applicable needs section data to stress why the objective set is ambitious, right? A review of the needs section. Then you clearly explain the proposed percentage increase or improvement from the baseline data. And I should tweak that to say using the absolute difference, okay? Not the relative change. And then you want to list the specific services and resources designed to achieve each objective and why it's attainable, okay? So just 3 easy steps, right? Easier said than done, right? And so, for example, here's for persistence. And again, EOC, play along, but we have objective A, persistence. You would say objective A, high school graduation, GED. The persistence objective of this percentage will result in a certain percentage point PP increase from the baseline rate of the baseline that was collected. The objective is also ambitious due to the following issues initially addressed in the needs section. So one of the first ones is the main one. What was the baseline to begin with? I repeat it here for persistence of the students that are currently, their persistence rate. And then I add on some other stuff that we put. I bring up the free and reduced lunch. We had to talk about that earlier. So I throw that in there to remind the reader. And then perhaps the target schools were performing below the state's academic performance indicator. And I already talked about that before in the needs section. So I brought it back. Okay, I brought it back. And then the second part of that is when I talk about why it's ambitious. And so continuation, but however, it's attainable because of the following specific project activities and services offered on a weekly and or monthly basis as detailed in the plan of operations section of this proposal. Now for EOC, I might say based on activities and service offered to the participant based on their individual service plan. That was conducted at their first meeting, because it's all about, EOC is a lot more individualized than Talent Search. And so, for example, for persistence, we're saying that these activities are specific to helping students with the persistence objective. Imagine EOC, you would say these activities are specific to helping them earn that, objective, the first objective of getting back into high school, getting a high school diploma and getting a GED. Okay. So again, let's see here. Lessons learned. Okay. And again, this is something for exactly, somebody said that they, we've talked about this with Talent Search. I was using the wrong baseline. Teresa, I was giving the cohort graduation rate as the baseline and the reader said, oh no, it needs to be about seniors. So I lost 3 points there because on both of these objectives for Talent Search, I was using the cohort graduation rate from 9th to 12th grade. And they said, nope, you need to give me just the 12th graders. So that's why some of you of my clients out there, you're like, why did she change? It was okay before. I'm telling you what was okay before. It doesn't work anymore, or they've caught on to it. The readers, they taught me a lesson. And then let's see here. Yeah, that was the one. And then the last one was because they said it wasn't ambitious enough because some of the students, one of the target schools or several of the target schools were doing better than the state or the state rate. So I lost points, even though the average was fine. I lost points because one of the target schools was doing better. And so, that's when we have to decide, do we keep them as a target school and lose points, or make them not not an official target school anymore, but someone that we could serve, but not listed anymore. And then this is, Teresa, where they said, see, first of all, I don't think this is me, because I would have never allowed a baseline data of 13.5. I would have made it 14% or 13%, right? And so they said that this is a 1.5. They said it's too low, so that 1 point not awarded for that. Okay. So they didn't think it was good enough, even though I explained it that this was actually a 20% increase in relative growth. They didn't buy that. They were thinking, oh, it's just a 1.5. That's terrible. Low point increase of 1.5. Yikes. So lessons learned is what we call this. And that's what I'm learning. I'm always learning, just as you are, Teresa, right? I'm more obsessed with getting technical review forms or reports from grants that have lost points than I am reading the perfect scores, right? Because I don't learn anything from that. I learn more from people who send me their scores, or my own clients where they're excited about getting funded. But I said, what did you score? Oh, we scored a blah, blah. And I said, but that's not the most. So I wonder where they cut off scores. And they're busy celebrating. And I'm like, I need those scores. Oh, okay, we'll get them to you later. La, la, la. And I'm like, where are those scores? Oh, yeah. Why do you need them? Because I want to know where we lost the points, because that's going to help me for Talent Search and EOC. Anyway, do we have any other questions? We have 1 more minute left. Okay.
No questions in it.
No questions yet. Okay. So again, the video will be ready sometime tomorrow. You can go to our YouTube channel. If you want the actual PowerPoint and the actual discussion that we had for an hour and a half just on the objectives for both EOC and Talent Search, you'll have to join the WIC course. Then Donna just put that in there. So hopefully you'll take part in that. Remember, that's an unallowable cost, but you gotta spend a little money to make a lot of money. It's a good return on your investment for sure. Thank you, Teresa, so much. Everyone, happy Thanksgiving. I'll be working this Thanksgiving. You'll be doing your stuff, Teresa. I'll be looking at Talent Search and EOC. Thank you, everyone. Hey, Aline. Thanks, Teresa. Stay
Bye-bye.
dry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. Someone said, how do we handle early graduates on the Talent Search APR? Janice, you still there? Well, you can, my recommendation is when you mean early graduates, I guess, are you saying a 12th grader who's graduating early in December, or someone who was an 11th grader and now is a 12th grader? I don't think it makes a difference, but anyway, what I would do is I would change right for the APR. So if you're finding out now that, oh my gosh, they graduated early, well, I'm going to make them a 12th grader on the 24-25 APR. I'm going to change their grade standing from 11th grader. Okay. So I'm going to make them a 12th grader. Okay. And that way I get credit if I help them go to college and with all that good stuff. Okay. So that's what I do. And if they didn't, then it counts against me, I guess. There is a way you could leave them there and you could answer, but it's less confusing. How about a junior that passed high school set is now pursuing college? Well, junior, well, I would make them a 12th grader for 24-25 because they probably had enough credits at the beginning of the school year for 24-25, which is a year ago, to have been a senior. And I treat them as a senior and I take them through the senior objectives. That's what I would do. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. That's what I've always done. Okay. Make those juniors and students that graduate early, I go back and change them to be 12th graders for that APR. But that means I have to treat them and count, they'll count for me or against me either way. Okay. And I hope they count for me, especially if they went to college, right? Otherwise I've lost them. Thank you all so much. Happy Thanksgiving. And we will not be on next the Monday after Thanksgiving. Okay. So I won't see you until the week after that.